And finally, the last of the macronutrients, fat. Yes, fat has a bad reputation for causing weight gain, but believe it or not, some fat is essential for survival. We need fat for normal growth and development. Fat is the most concentrated source of energy. It absorbs certain vitamins like A, D, E, K, and carotenoids. It provides cushioning for the organs. Fat maintains cell membranes, and fat provides taste, consistency, and stability to foods. You know what's coming. Fat is not simply fat. But before we delve into fat, let's take a look at cholesterol, or lipids. The biggest influence on blood cholesterol level is the mix of fats and carbohydrates in your diet, not the amount of cholesterol you eat from food. Although it remains important to limit the amount of cholesterol you eat, especially if you have diabetes, for most people, dietary cholesterol is not as problematic as once believed. The body uses cholesterol as the starting point to make estrogen, testosterone, vitamin D, and other vital compounds. Cholesterol in the bloodstream, specifically the bad LDL cholesterol, is what's important in determining health risk. Fat and cholesterol can't dissolve in water or blood. Instead, the body packages fat and cholesterol into tiny protein-covered particles called lipoproteins. Lipoproteins can transport a lot of fat. They mix easily with blood and flow with it. Some of these particles are big and fluffy, while others are small and dense. Following are the most important ones. Low-density lipoproteins, or LDL, carry cholesterol from the liver to the rest of the body. Cells latch onto these particles and extract fat and cholesterol from them. When there is too much LDL cholesterol in the blood, these particles can form deposits in the walls of the coronary arteries and other arteries throughout the body. Such deposits, called plaque, can narrow arteries and limit blood flow. When plaque breaks apart, it can cause a heart attack or stroke. Because of this, LDL cholesterol is often referred to as bad or harmful cholesterol. I call LDLs litter bugs because they throw harmful deposits onto the artery walls. You can also remember them as lousy. High-density lipoproteins, or HDL, scavenge cholesterol from the bloodstream, from LDL, and from artery walls, and ferry it back to the liver for disposal. Think of HDL as the garbage trucks of the bloodstream. HDL cholesterol is often referred to as good or protective cholesterol. We can call HDLs happy cholesterol because they ultimately lower your total cholesterol. Triglycerides make up most of the fat that you eat and that travels through the bloodstream. As the body's main vehicle for transporting fats to cells, triglycerides are important for good health, though high levels of triglycerides can be unhealthy. Triglycerides are basically just excess fat floating around in your bloodstream. One important thing to remember is that cholesterol is only found in animal products. Now that was a quick lesson on cholesterol, but it will help us to define good fat and bad fat. Check out this 30-second video from the Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute to see how cholesterol flowing through your bloodstream can build on the wall of the blood vessel over time. The plaque that forms can partially block blood flow through the blood vessel. You can find the link for this video in the lesson content for this module if you are not able to view it here. Okay, we reviewed cholesterol and we discovered that cholesterol comes from animal products. But which type of protein has the least amount of cholesterol? A, 3 ounces of broiled fish. B, 3 ounces of lean hamburger. C, 3 ounces of turkey. Or D, 3 ounces of chicken. If you said all animal products contain approximately the same cholesterol per unit, Then you are correct. In order to cut dietary cholesterol, reduce your intake of animal products. When it comes to dietary fat, what matters most is the type of fat you eat. Contrary to past dietary advice promoting low-fat diets, newer research shows that healthy diets are necessary and beneficial for health. When food manufacturers reduce fat, they often replace it with carbohydrates from sugar, refined grains, or other starches. As we already learned, our bodies digest these refined carbohydrates and starches very quickly, affecting blood sugar and insulin levels and possibly resulting in weight gain and chronic conditions. Findings from the Nurses' Health Study and the Health Professionals Follow-Up Study show that there is no link between the overall percentage of calories from fat and any important health outcome, including cancer, heart disease, and weight gain. Rather than adopting a low-fat diet, it's more important to focus on eating beneficial good fats and avoiding harmful bad fats. Fat is an important part of a healthy diet. Choose foods with good unsaturated fats, limit foods high in saturated fat, and avoid bad trans fat. Let's start with the good. Unsaturated fats, which are liquid at room temperature, are considered to be beneficial fats because they can improve blood cholesterol levels, ease inflammation, stabilize heart rhythms, and play a number of other beneficial roles. Unsaturated fats are predominantly found in foods from plants such as vegetable oils, nuts, and seeds. There are two types of good unsaturated fats. Monounsaturated fats are found in high concentrations in olive, peanut, and canola oils, avocados, nuts such as almonds, hazelnuts, and pecans, and seeds such as pumpkin and sesame seeds. Polyunsaturated fats are found in high concentrations in sunflower, corn, soybean, and flaxseed oils, walnuts, flax seeds, fish, and canola oil. Though higher in monounsaturated fat, it's also a good source of polyunsaturated fat. Omega-3 fats are an important type of polyunsaturated fat. The body can't make these, so they must come from food. An excellent way to get polyunsaturated fats is by eating fish 2 to 3 times a week. Good plant sources of omega-3 fats include flax seeds, walnuts, and canola or soybean oil. Higher blood omega-3 fats are associated with lower risk of premature death among older adults, according to a study by the Harvard School of Public Health faculty. Most people don't eat enough healthful unsaturated fats. The American Heart Association suggests that 8 to 10% of daily calories should come from polyunsaturated fats, and there is evidence that eating more polyunsaturated fat, up to 15% of daily calories in place of saturated fat, can lower heart disease risk. Dutch researchers conducted an analysis of 60 trials that examined the effects of carbohydrates and various fats on blood lipid levels. In trials in which polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats were eaten in place of carbohydrates, these good fats decreased levels of harmful LDL and increased protective HDL. More recently, a randomized trial known as the Optimal Macronutrient Intake Trial for Heart Health, or OmniHeart, showed that replacing a carbohydrate-rich diet with one rich in unsaturated fat, predominantly monounsaturated fats, lowers blood pressure, improves lipid levels, and reduces the estimated cardiovascular risk. All foods containing fat have a mix of different types of fats. Even healthy foods like chicken and nuts have small amounts of saturated fat, though much less than the amounts found in beef, cheese, and ice cream. Saturated fat is mainly found in animal foods, but a few plant foods are also high in saturated fats, such as coconut, coconut oil, palm oil, and palm kernel oil. The Dietary Guidelines for Americans recommends getting less than 10% of calories each day from saturated fat. The American Heart Association goes even further, recommending limiting saturated fat to no more than 7% of calories. Cutting back on saturated fat will likely have no benefit, however, if people replace saturated fat with refined carbohydrates. Eating refined carbohydrates in place of saturated fat does lower bad LDL cholesterol, but it also lowers the good HDL cholesterol and increases triglycerides. The net effect is as bad for the heart as eating too much saturated fat. In the United States, the biggest sources of saturated fat in the diet are pizza, cheese, whole and reduced fat milk, butter and dairy desserts, meat products such as sausage, bacon, beef, and hamburgers, cookies and other grain-based desserts, and a variety of mixed fast food dishes. Though decades of dietary advice suggested saturated fat was harmful, in recent years several studies have challenged this, suggesting that the link between saturated fat and heart disease is questionable. This research was found to be seriously misleading. The overarching message is that cutting back on saturated fat can be good for health if people replace saturated fat with good fats, especially polyunsaturated fats. Eating good fats in place of saturated fats lowers the bad LDL cholesterol, and it improves the ratio of total cholesterol to good HDL cholesterol, lowering the risk of heart disease. Eating good fats in place of saturated fat can also prevent insulin resistance, a precursor to diabetes. So, while saturated fat may not be as harmful as once thought, evidence clearly shows that unsaturated fat remains the healthiest type of fat. Trans fatty acids, more commonly called trans fats, are made by heating liquid vegetable oils in the presence of hydrogen gas and a catalyst, a process called hydrogenation. Partially hydrogenating vegetable oils makes them more stable and less likely to become rancid. They can withstand repeated heating without breaking down, making them ideal for frying fast foods. For these reasons, partially hydrogenated oils became a mainstay in restaurants and the food industry for frying, baked goods, and processed snack foods and margarine. Partially hydrogenated oil is not the only source of trans fats in our diets. Trans fats are also naturally found in beef fat and dairy fat in small amounts. Trans fats are the worst type of fat for the heart, blood vessels, and the rest of the body because they raise bad LDL and lower good HDL. They create inflammation, which has been implicated in heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and other chronic conditions, and they contribute to insulin resistance. You can have harmful health effects even when consuming trans fats in small amounts. For each additional 2% of calories from trans fats consumed daily, the risk of coronary heart disease increases by 23%. It is recommended that we limit our intake of trans fats to less than 1% of our caloric intake. So, we learned the recommended levels of each macronutrient to maintain a healthy diet. 45 to 65% of your calories should come from carbohydrates. 20 to 35% of your calories should come from fat, and no more than 7% from saturated fat. And 10% to 35% of your calories should come from protein. But how do we apply this to what we eat? Let's calculate the recommended carbohydrates for an individual who is on a 2,000 calorie diet. First, we will calculate the low end of the range by multiplying 2,000 by 45%. That equals 900 calories. Remember that there are 4 calories in every 1 gram of carbohydrate. So if you are counting grams rather than calories, you would divide the calories by 4. This equals 225 grams of carbohydrates. Then we would repeat this for the upper end, or 65%. multiplying 2,000 by 65%, and then dividing by 4 to come up with 325 grams of carbohydrates. This individual should consume between 225 and 325 grams of carbohydrates each day. When determining quantities for fat, remember that 1 gram of fat supplies 9 calories, so you would divide by 9 rather than by 4. We will take a quick look at micronutrients. To recap, micronutrients are those nutrients that are essential for survival, but are needed in smaller amounts than macronutrients. They are vitamins and minerals. Vitamins are essential for normal body functioning. The only vitamin that our body produces is vitamin D. The best way to get vitamins is by eating a diet rich in whole grains, vegetables, and fruits. Think about eating a variety of colors. The different colors in plant foods come from different nutrients. So, eating a variety of colors will ensure that you are getting a variety of vitamins. Minerals make up about 4% of our body weight. They are small but mighty. They interact with the water in our bodies and do various essential functions, such as regulate fluids, build protein, produce energy, provide structure to bones, participate in muscle contraction, and help with blood formation. Minerals also prevent bone loss, anemia, and hypertension. Your textbook provides great tables throughout the chapter to summarize good sources for nutrients, as well as the benefits and safety of nutrients. I suspect that you will refer back to these in the future. Okay, that's a wrap. We covered the basics of nutrition. Next, we will investigate how to implement these guidelines to maintain a healthy weight.